Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of our video series. I'm here with Nick Ruhlow and we're fortunate enough to have Nick. We're in the Pacific area of Guanacaste in Samara. And Nick was born in this area. He was born in Carrillo, Guanacaste, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his life, how he ended up here in Samara, what he does, and we're fortunate enough that he's going to be able to talk to us about the Costa Rica real estate market, specifically in this part of the country, where he has a lot of experience for many, many years working in real estate. Nick, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely, Roger. Thank you so much for inviting me over to your channel. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, like you mentioned, I was born and raised in the Samara and Carrillo area of Guanacaste. I'm not very old, but I've seen it change throughout my lifetime and grow and develop, and it's been a really cool and unique experience. And being a part of the real estate market and just having a say in kind of like how the market grows, how the community grows, has been a really special part and very valuable part of my life growing up here. You know, Samara and Carrillo are two different little towns, two different beaches, but more or less it's kind of like the same community. A lot of the people that live and grow up in Carrillo sometimes go and work in Samara, and vice versa. So it's all kind of like one community, especially nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I notice they're very tied together. You've got Carrillo and Samara, you're going all the way up to Nosada. It seems to be like it's all becoming more interconnected, the whole area, and all booming in certain different aspects.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how the coast of Guanacaste has really grown and developed over the years. In the past, you know, growing up, the roads were completely different. It used to take like half an hour to just get from Carrillo to Samara. But with the growth and the development, you know, everything has become more interconnected with high-speed internet and just technology developing. It has all really become more of one community.
Okay, and you work here as a realtor. You got an office with Coldwell Banker. So you want to tell us a little bit about how that came about? How did you end up getting in the real estate business? Because you're pretty young, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been in the real estate business and focusing mostly here in Samara?
Yep, that's correct. So yes, I have an office and I work with Coldwell Banker Samara.
Okay.
I've been in real estate for about 5.5 years now. And it's been kind of like a natural, very organic way that I came into real estate. So back in 2008, my mom was a very active realtor in the Samara and Carrillo area. And so I was kind of like around it for a really long time. Then I went off to college, got my degree, got a little bit of working experience. And I decided to come back to Samara and Carrillo. And it was just kind of like a natural development. I had friends in real estate and they just kind of opened up some doors for me. Yeah. And the rest is history, and this is where I am now.
It's perfect. You certainly picked the right profession at the right timing, because we've had some, as everything all around the world, I mean, real estate is cyclical, right? So, you know, we had the big downturn in 2008 all over Costa Rica that affected a lot of areas of Costa Rica as far as sales, because I would say that most of the buyers from beach coastal areas seem to be from the United States, Canada. So we're very dependent on that market, and when that market kind of hiccups, we feel it in this area as well. So we got over 2008. Then COVID was actually a boom for real estate. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I saw like 2021, 2022 was just like a balloon of.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the different cycles of real estate throughout the years. You know, when COVID happened, we weren't sure what was going to happen with the real estate market in Costa Rica. You know, with the borders being closed down and a big portion of our market, which is international from North America or Europe, they weren't able to come down and actually see a lot of the properties that they were interested in. So for those first few months, we weren't really sure what was going to happen. But then quickly we saw that there was still a lot of interest. A lot of people were buying properties sight unseen or just through photos and videos. So we quickly saw that there was still a lot of interest in real estate. And I think, you know, COVID kind of showed a lot of people that they can work remotely from anywhere in the world, especially Costa Rica being on a very similar time zone to a lot of North America. It's really easy to people to just work remotely from here, and access to high-speed internet. And, you know, we're just a very short flight from a lot of different parts in North America. So it just made it like a place that, you know, a lot of people showed interest in. Yeah.
So for example, locally in Samara, what's the real estate market? If you have to break it up into like, you know, price ranges.
Mm-hmm.
Before, you know, most people were looking for stuff, $250,000 seemed to have been like the average price of what people were looking for.
Yeah.
Is that still attainable in 2023? Or have you seen such a change in demand that has changed?
I think it's definitely changed a lot over the last few years. You know, Samara has always been a more affordable destination. It's not like Nosara or Guiones or Santa Teresa where it's become super, super expensive. Samara has always been a little bit on a more affordable price point. Pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, the most popular homes that people were looking for were under the $250,000 range. Ever since the real estate market kind of developed and transitioned and grew a lot, the most popular price point nowadays is $400,000 and under. So, you know, you have different tiers, different categories. In the $250,000 range, you're still able to find a nice home. You know, you might get lucky and find a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom home that's within a short distance to Samara. You might be able to find a condo, a nice condo. If you're lucky, you might be able to find a condo with an ocean view. But the most popular price point right now is in the $350,000 to $450,000 price range.
Where we're filming right now is a little subdivision up in the outskirts of Samara.
Mm-hmm.
So what are like the most popular? Are there a lot of like these residential communities that are kind of hidden up in the hills? How many of these exist in the Samara area?
Yeah.
And is there things still available there? What are the price ranges? Do you pay a premium for being in these more gated type communities?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, as the saying goes in real estate is location, location, location.
Yeah.
So depending on different areas of Samara or Carrillo, if you're on a nice location, the prices tend to be a little bit higher. Right now where we are is a development called Loma Verde, which is actually just off the maritime zone. So right behind us here is the ocean. You can actually hear it, you know, at nighttime or if the wind is right. So it really depends on where you are. This is a very sought after location, and there's really, to answer your question, there's really not that many gated communities like this in Samara.
Okay.
Samara kind of developed in a more independent way, and so we don't see too many developments like this. And so it kind of depends a lot on where you are. But I would say that most of the properties in the market here in Samara tend to be freestanding properties and not so many gated communities.
Down, they have some cash, but they decide, you know, hey Nick, I need some financing for my transaction. Where would you point them as far as being able to finance their real estate purchase in Samara?
Yeah, so that's one very important topic that a lot of people ask about. You know, buying a home in Costa Rica might not be as straightforward as, you know, getting pre-approved for a loan and then just getting your loan from a public entity. It's not the way that it works down here in Costa Rica. So most people buy in cash. If they can self-finance in the United States via a cash line of credit, like a home equity line of credit, then that tends to be the cheapest option for financing. But if they need financing available in Costa Rica, nowadays there's a lot more private banks that are offering financing to non-residents, and there's a lot of private lenders as well that offer this. And if you're lucky, on occasion you might find a seller that offers seller financing at very strong or competitive rates. However, with the market changing over the last few years, that's a little bit less common nowadays.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how in the U.S. people panic when the interest rates went from, I don't know, 2 to 4 to 5. And I think here in Costa Rica, those of us who were born here, like you and I, and grew up here, I don't think we've ever seen interest rates of 3% ever in our lives. So we're used to like 9%.
Yeah.
For as far as back as I can remember to be. And the banks here typically between 9 and 10% interest.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is obviously on people's mind is, okay, I'm moving to Costa Rica, I'm moving down to Samara. What is it going to cost me to live comfortably in this area, more or less, based on your experience?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think it has changed a lot throughout the years as well, with inflation worldwide going up. So it's really changed a little bit throughout the last few years. And I think it depends on everybody's needs and their way of life. It's going to affect a little bit what their necessary expenses will be. But in general, I say you can live comfortably with $2,500, $3,500 per month. You know, and it's going to vary. You know, there's people that can live comfortably with less, people that can live with more. So it's really going to depend a lot on your lifestyle.
That makes a lot of sense. Also, like I noticed the schooling. So people who move here with families, for example, what education options do they have if they have younger kids? And for what ages and what options are there in the area?
Well, that's a great question. And the really cool thing about Samara is that it's such a multicultural town and community that there's a lot of people from North America. There's a lot of European expats that live here as well. So it's become education has become a lot more accessible for them throughout the years. Nowadays, we have two different private schools in the area. We have Marea's Homeschooling, which is actually certified in Florida. So once you graduate from Marea's, which goes all the way from primary to secondary, middle school, and high school, you can get a degree from Florida as well. And then we also have Samara Pacific School, which is certified with the Ministerio de Educación Pública, the MEP. So it's a private school, but it's certified by the government. So, you know, great options in the area.
Okay, so we got schooling, we've got cost of living, transportation. What's it? You have to have your own car here?
Yeah, so public transportation is not that great in Samara. The good thing about Samara, though, is that it's a little bit more centralized than a lot of other coastal locations. It's not super spread out the way Nosara or Guiones or Santa Teresa can be. So if you live in town, you can get away with a bicycle, you can walk into town. There's a lot of people that have golf carts or ATVs, so you don't necessarily need a four-wheel drive vehicle if you want to live here and keep your costs down low, but it's always fun if you have a car and you can go exploring different beaches, go up into the mountains, so it's always great if you have some type of mobility.
Yeah, it's really very popular.
Yeah.
Now another thing that we want to cover also is obviously people look at security. So Jose, lately we've been getting all this news about the narco wars and crime. Now what's the situation like on the coast?
Well, I think one of the big benefits of Samara is that it's still a bit of a smaller destination. It's not like a huge spring break destination, kind of like Tamarindo or Jaco. And so, with that being said, it doesn't have all the negatives that come with a bigger city. So you do get a little bit of petty theft here and there. But generally speaking, you know, Samara is considered a lot more safe than, you know, this bigger coastal destinations. And the nice thing about Samara is that there's not such a big disparity between the high-income people and low-income people, the way that it might be in other coastal destinations. So I think things are a little bit more balanced out, and it's not something that is usually on top of our mind. It's something that occasionally happens in Samara, but generally speaking, it tends to be very safe here.
It's kind of the feeling that I've gotten in the times that I've been visiting here locally. You kind of feel overall sense of safety. Like you said, petty theft, that's all over Costa Rica, but in general, I don't feel unsafe in the area, and everything's open. You know, no bars on this windows. Everything is, which is what you want in this area. You want to be able to live with nature, outdoors, with everything green, and be able to look at it. So that's the whole key.
Yeah, exactly.
As we've been speaking before, we saw a big surge in real estate demand during COVID. Then it maybe waned a little bit, but you know, I think it's rebounding again. What are you seeing? I mean, has the war in Ukraine, has the U.S. economy, constant talk on the news of recession, how is that affecting the real estate market in Samara?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Obviously, there's all this big macroeconomic things happening in the world that affect us down here in Costa Rica. And traditionally speaking, the Costa Rican real estate market has followed very closely what the North American market tends to do. So we did see a bit of a slowdown at the beginning of the year with interest rates going up and the talk of recession. You know, I think people were a little bit more careful with investing abroad. But what we've really seen over the last couple of months is that there's been another big surge in interest in the area. So we have a lot of people looking, especially from Europe. So I don't think that the war in Ukraine is having any effect on us. In fact, I would say that it just maybe, in fact, incentivizes people to...
More positive effect. People are like, get me the heck out of Europe.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah.
Because that's an interesting point you make, because I do listen to a lot of French, German, Italian. What is that the European composition that kind of settles and gravitates towards this area that you're seeing? What countries are you seeing more people from Europe coming to Samara area?
Yeah, definitely. You know, in Samara there was a big French community that came down here in the early 90s. And so kind of that French community kind of snowballed, and there was a lot of friends and family that came down with them. And so currently there's a very big and strong French community in Samara. But over the years there's been a lot of people coming down from Germany, a lot of people from Spain. So all over Europe we're seeing people come down, especially nowadays. I think a lot more people are coming down from Switzerland or Sweden, so we have a big European community that's coming down.
That's a great point you make, because I think that's what's happened that I'm noticing. Before we were, 15, 20 years ago, we were much more dependent on the U.S. market for the real estate. But now we're seeing that even when the U.S. market slows down a little bit, there's interest from other countries in Europe, and that's just the traditional European countries. Now we're also seeing from non-traditional European countries, right? I mean, there's also from Poland and what used to be the Eastern Bloc countries. They're starting to also ask questions and come this way as well, is what I'm noticing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. One of our biggest clients is from Austria. One of our biggest investors is from Austria. And so we're definitely seeing what you're mentioning, that a lot of this non-traditional, smaller European economies and countries, a lot of them are coming down to Costa Rica.
Okay. Let's switch gears here and talk a little, because you mentioned investment a couple times. Let's talk a little bit about what kind of investment properties are available in the area. Are there good returns? Are people buying to put on Airbnb or rental markets? What do the returns look like? So let's just grab somebody that says, hey, I want to invest in something that I can Airbnb and have a little income. What path would you guide them down?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think that the great thing about Samara is that it's still super accessible. We're only about an hour and 45 minutes from Liberia Airport, Guanacaste Airport. And so it's a great tourist destination. A lot of people come down here. It's very family oriented, so a lot of young families tend to come down. So the tourism industry in Samara is very well developed, I would say. So for a person that's looking to make an investment and buy an investment property, I would say that most people that are looking to rent want to be close to town. They want to be walking distance to the beach if possible. They want to be able to walk to dinner at night, go and have a drink, or head down to the beach with their kids. So location is going to be a very important factor. You're probably going to want to have multiple dwellings in one property if possible to generate the most income, or just a very popular investment that people do nowadays is that they buy a home that they rent out when they're not here, and they use it for 2 months, 3 months out of the year, get away from the winter and rent it out the rest of the time. So it really depends on where you are, but it can definitely help pay for itself and generate a little bit of income as well.
Yeah, based on that, what's the typical occupancy rates? Because I think that it's increased. I mean, 15 years ago, during what we call the green season, it was virtually dead. I think that's changed a lot. I think now there's always tourism coming, even in the slow months. But can you explain a little bit to our audience the difference between the busy season, the dry season, and the green season?
Yeah, definitely. To follow up on your point, I definitely think that the high season, low season is not as defined as it used to be in the previous years. So traditional average occupancy rate that we might see here is around 65-70% yearly occupancy rates. Can be definitely a lot higher if you price your property aggressively or you market it aggressively and your sole focus is to generate as much income as you want. And it can also be a little bit lower if you're using the property for yourself or you're trying to go for a more exclusive target market. But we still have a very defined high season, which would normally be from the beginning of December till about the end of April. Those are the colder winter months in the northern hemisphere, so a lot of people look to come down here. May tends to slow down a little bit, but June, July, and August also sees another surge of people coming down here. And then September and October, it tends to slow down a little bit. It's a little bit rainy at times, depending on the year. But it's a great opportunity for property owners to do a little bit of maintenance on their properties, or if you have a bigger investment property, to give vacation to your employees. So it ends up balancing itself pretty nicely.
I also noticed that there's a lot of like mini hotels, and I see some of them are, you know, they come on the market. These are hotels that I would say between, I don't know, 650,000 to $1.2 million, or $1.5 million, around that range. What do you see in that regard as far as?
Yeah, definitely. That's one nice thing about Samara, is that, you know, it's all developed in a more mom and pop type development. So we don't see those big chains like the Westin or the Barcelos. Most of the hotels that we see down here are the smaller boutique hotels, and it really creates a special feel for Samara. People love it down here. They love the more personalized attention. And there's definitely a couple of those smaller boutique hotels that come into the market occasionally. Currently we have a beautiful small B&B called Villas Espabel, which is 6 different villas, you know, very small, very cozy, located in a great location, walking distance to the beach, and it definitely generates a great return on investment. Yeah.
And what would something like that list for, the price?
So Villas Espabel is in the market for $999,000.
Okay.
Yep, and it's definitely generating. You're definitely going to get 15% return on investment, more or less, per year. Yeah.
And do you know how many people does it take to operate a small hotel like that? Say the owner wanted to buy it, but they didn't want to be there, you know, all the time. You got a manager. What kind of staff do you need to really operate a?
So for a small B&B like this one, 6 different villas, it's they have a 5-person staff.
Okay.
So they have an administrator and her assistant, which also helps out with cleaning on occasion. Then you have 2 full-time maintenance and landscaping workers, and then you have a full-time cleaning person.
Nick, another thing we also get a lot of questions from clients is, okay, they're moving on to Costa Rica, they come to Samara, okay, the first thing they say, okay, Nick, take me to the bank, I want to open a bank account.
Yeah.
We both laugh because, you know, in the U.S., for example, you walk into the bank and you're out of there in 10-15 minutes with multiple accounts.
Yeah.
In Costa Rica, it can take a little bit longer to get the accounts open. That creates a little bit of frustration, but you know, how do you handle it with your expat clients that come to Samara for banking?
Yeah, well, luckily we're familiar with the banking system in Costa Rica, so we know ahead of time that it might be a good thing to check with our clients to see if they want to open up a local bank account. And in case they do, we prepare them we set their expectations to, you know, let them know that you're not going to be in and out. If you're lucky, it might be a couple of hours, but more than likely you're going to have to go back on a couple of occasions. You know, we tend to prepare our clients, so if you're going to open up an account here, we let them know what type of documents they're going to have to bring down from the United States and what type of different certifications or different personerías jurídicas they might need to open up that bank account.
Okay. Another point that I wanted to talk about was healthcare, because let's say that you have a medical emergency and you need to seek medical care, and I'm living in Samara. Nick, where do I go?
Yeah. So we're very lucky in Samara that we have Dr. Freddy's private clinic right in town, and Dr. Freddy is great. He's fully bilingual. He on occasion works with insurance providers from the United States and North America, and if he doesn't have any of the specialized medical equipment that he needs to attend you, then we have the Nicoya hospital, the bigger hospital, La Anexion, which is only about 40-45 minutes from Samara. So luckily, you know, very close by, we have good medical services available.
Hey Nick, let's talk a little bit about real estate development, because, you know, I also saw during the last couple of years, you know, people come down and say, okay, I want to come down, I want to buy a raw piece of land, I want to put some bungalows on there, or I want to, you know, build some single-family houses that I can then sell. So let's say somebody comes to you and says, hey, find me a piece of property so I can build 10 units on it. How would you go about it?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of opportunities still in the area, all throughout Costa Rica and Samara and Caribe. There's still a lot of great development opportunities. I think finding that right piece of property to develop the vision that the client has in mind is really important. So I always like to work with them, kind of get an idea of what they're looking for, what they want to develop, what their vision is, what they have in mind, and based on that, we go and look for different type of properties. As you know, in Costa Rica, having access to water is super important. You need to work with your local water providers, whether it's an ASADA or it's AIA, or in some cases, if you have to drill and create your own water infrastructure, that's something that's very important that you have to consider, as well as electricity and internet. So having access to all services is really key to developing what you have in mind. But there's definitely great opportunities out there. So based on what you're looking for, you might be looking for a bigger finca or something smaller if you're a little bit closer to town, closer to the beach. So it really depends on a lot of what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a very excellent points, and that was a great answer, because I think that's a lot of people that I know some frustration is, and also a lot of caution that they need to do, because a lot of people will say they'll fall in love with a piece of property, but they're not doing the due diligence, right? Due diligence before is essential, because where do I get the water? Without a water availability letter, you can't even build, right?
Exactly.
And so I think falling in love with the property is perfect, but you have guys like Nick who are experts in this area, and they know everybody, and they know what has water, what has problems. So, if you want to avoid a lot of headaches, you land right at Nick's desk, and that's going to save you a lot of aggravation with headaches. Because I've seen people that try or think they know it all, and then they buy a property without doing the due diligence, and then 2 years later they come back and they go, I'm going to start the project now.
Yeah.
And then they find out there's no water. There's protected zoning, there's a stream on the property.
Yeah.
All these are restrictions that limit the use of the property. So I think it's very important to reach out to somebody like Nick if you're looking for development land, and he's going to definitely keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Having a local person that has local knowledge, has all the different contacts to help you develop what you have in mind, and most importantly, having a great lawyer such as yourself that is going to do the full due diligence and really make a full study on the property and give you a good overview of what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah. And of course, folks, timing is everything. So a lot of it is, people who started building right during COVID, who didn't buy land, put stuff up during COVID, they made out very, very well, because the market peaked 2022, and everything they built was sold.
Absolutely. Like we talked earlier, real estate is very cyclical. So just having the right timing, being able to, project ahead what the market's going to be like, how it's going to change, is definitely key to real estate.
Exactly. So do you have a lot of development properties in your inventory at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in general terms, the inventory is a little bit lower now than it was several years ago. We do still have some great development properties that are for sale. Beautiful properties with ocean view, stunning views, great peaceful, quiet locations. But it takes that extra step of having somebody that's willing to develop it and put in the work. And it's not always just water, electricity. It can also be zoning, putting in the infrastructure itself, such as roads, building platforms, all that kind of stuff. It's really important, very key.
Yeah. People have mentioned that the construction costs have gone up 30% in the last couple of years too. So I think people have to be careful with that too, is that it's going to be a lot more expensive to put that infrastructure in than it was maybe 5 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. Definitely. I think with all the supply chain issues around the world right now, building costs have gone up. And I feel like a lot of the contractors, they're, scared that the prices might change. So they're quoting their services a little bit higher than they normally would to account for that change in the supply chain.
Great point. I think it's also combining Costa Rica with the fact that we have the colonia as our currency, and the colonia has been actually strengthening with the dollar. So that's also made products a little bit more expensive. At the moment.
Exactly, I agree.
I want to thank Nick for his valuable time and sharing with us today. And if you listen to somebody like Nick when you come down to Samara, you're going to save a lot of headaches, a lot of time wasted, because he knows everybody and knows where to go and knows how to put you in the right direction. So Nick, again, thank you so much for your valuable time and sitting down with us and discussing a little bit about your life here in Samara. And
Well, Roger, thank you so much for inviting me to your YouTube channel, and it's always a pleasure.
be sure to watch the next video coming up comparing Playa Samara and Playa Nosara. I'm going to go ahead and leave a contact information for Nick in the description for those of you that are interested in Playa Samara. As always, thank you for watching.